Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. I'm Carl Lanore. If you're not familiar with me already, I've been the longest running podcast in the world about health, fitness, and anti-aging. This is our 20th year doing Superhuman Radio. And we try to cover topics that are timely. And today's topic is going to be about sepsis. Not just because I caught it in January, but everybody I know is telling me they or someone they know has contracted sepsis. Sepsis is a very, very, very dangerous disease. We're going to discuss that. My guest today is Lydia
Pearson.
And you're a nurse.
Yep, I'm an RN.
Okay. But you have had the bad fortune of having to take care of somebody who contracted sepsis.
Yes. Yeah.
And as a nurse, you look at things from the medical standpoint, and a lot of things are done incorrectly when it comes to people with sepsis. First of all, sepsis is blood poisoning, technically, right?
Right. What it is the immune system has gone awry from, and there are some bad bugs, in essence, like antibiotic-resistant bugs that can create sepsis, but typically it is from a staph. That's the most common form is staph or E. coli, right? And you have those on your skin, you have E. coli in your gut, and when it goes awry and now it's creating a disease that actually will attack the organs, and that's how it kills you, is your immune system just gets overwhelmed and starts attacking itself too.
And we're going to talk about why we think staph is on the rise. Sepsis is on the rise. Yeah. But here's an interesting fact. 1 out of 3 people who die in the hospital die of sepsis. Right. Now think about all the people that die in the hospital for various reasons, that go to a hospital for various reasons. 1 out of 3 of them die of sepsis. That's a number that you would imagine the medical industry would be looking harder into. How do we prevent this and how do we treat it better? The reason I say treat it better is because I had sepsis a year ago. Mm-hmm. I was released from the hospital a year ago. I'm still not right.
Well, and one of the things, though, if this had occurred to you, the survival of sepsis has improved to some extent. There's these parameters, over 60, under a year. Those infants that could get sepsis, those are the ones that have the highest risks of not surviving. And it's a fairly, can be upwards of 50% of the population who receive it that don't survive. There's even as much as when you get into your 80s, you have a 20% chance of survival. So, it's a significant issue. So the question always comes to bear, number one, how did this happen in the first place? How could you have had an infection occur?
So I was 66 when I got sepsis. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my husband was 54.
I would imagine that I'm on the end where people die.
You're on the end, but beyond that, the mere fact that you are sitting here and didn't lose a lot of limb, and you haven't had organ failure, things like that. So heart is a big one, that heart can get damaged.
And they wanted to do open heart surgery on me, but the infection was captured before I needed it.
Well, and the part that always was disturbing to me, I don't know enough about the medical aspect of it in terms of as a heart surgeon or any of the, my husband he ended up with the infection affecting his prostate as well. So he had this horrible issue. And of course they wanted to go in and do a biopsy immediately. He was still recovering. He was like seriously 2 weeks out from his sepsis episode, and it was the catheterization that caused it. So I just sat there and I looked and I thought, well, wait a minute. This is an individual that's just recovering from a pretty significant issue, and wanting to do a needle biopsy to confirm that it's not cancer. And I'm thinking there's, number one, a lot of less invasive ways to go. But more importantly, we're still dealing with this potential of a secondary infection because he was on very high dose antibiotics. And I really don't know. I'm not a physician and I'm not certainly a surgeon, but I know enough to realize that would be the last thing we would ever do, is surgically do something that could potentially cause an even worse problem. And it was just appalling to me. So I do think what happens a lot of times, and we use the analogies, if all you've got is a hammer, then you're busy thinking everything uses a hammer. And I think that's kind of what's happened. We've pigeonholed our physicians and surgeons, and docs have gotten pigeonholed over the years to what they do. They are not, they've lost their critical thinking. And not all completely, but they can't practice medicine with critical thinking.
Right.
That's the difference. Because they've got a whole algorithm that they've got to follow that's mandated down to them.
And that's the problem, the standard of care.
Standard of care.
It's horrible.
It sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? Standard of care, because we're all busy screaming about snake-oiled salesmen and bad care. But the reality is who's creating that standard of care? What organization has created that? And so it's been proven. This is the reality too. We're seeing more and more of how the FDA has gone awry. It's being managed, how it's being managed, and it's being reeled back in again. But how did it get there, right? And what's our motivations? And so, what my focus now in terms of health and wellness is going to be: we have to take care. You have to be responsible for your lives.
Absolutely. And
people go to the doctor and they expect the doctor to know the answer, and unfortunately, you have to be responsible for your, and
I think a lot of people are afraid they're going to overstep their position as a patient.
True.
But I actually, so part of my story is the things that I'm living with now post-sepsis. Mm-hmm. And they use the word sepsis survivor, and it's a real term. I mean,
it is.
Like if you live through sepsis, it's not over yet.
Well, it's similar to like these near-death experiences. It really is, because you are kind of near death. Maybe you don't float out of your body, but
your brain knows it's in trouble. Your brain knows you're near death.
Well, and it's a frightening experience, and you are left with this sort of PTSD, but you don't know why, because you don't have any reference. It's not like,
that happens.
Yeah, tragic. Like the car accident.
It's like a cloud. It's like this cloud. Like it's what happened to me. Like all these things happened to me.
Well, and so that goes back to the whole thing about the body being electric, right? It's an electrical neural pathways, it's all electric, and so switches are turned on. And the reality is that I think when you go through that experience of sepsis, you aren't aware that some switches are triggered on. And then you think they're off because you're in your cognitive focused mind. But that subconscious mind, your survivor, this is how you survived. It's your subconscious mind is what's kicking in. It's what allows you to drive down the street and you're daydreaming and you don't realize you've just passed the gas station that you're headed to. Because
like I would tell you that sepsis, when I was in the hospital being treated, I didn't feel like, oh my God, I'm near death. In fact, I didn't even think I was near death until a friend of mine came to visit me. Mm-hmm. And he took a phone call from a friend of ours, and I heard him say he's not going to make it.
Yeah.
And I was like, who, me?
So true. And this is what I told you the other day when we were talking about this. There's a lot of ways to deal with the experience. But what I fundamentally want to take away on this, and for most people that deal with this, is that event that occurred is for the greater good of you, and it's not to have you be crippled and injured and scared and on all those things, because it'll affect your sleep. It'll affect relationships.
I haven't slept well since January.
Right.
I've been to 3 sleep specialists now.
Yeah.
I mean, and I slept good last night. It's the weirdest thing. I woke up this morning. There's a lot of things cognitively I've been damaged, but I know today it's not permanent because
It's getting better.
Yeah, because I did some things today that a month ago I couldn't do. I was like,
that's the important part of this. And I told you, it typically most people that get sepsis, it's a good 2 years before you recover. And the frustrating part about it is you look at it, you look at your physical being, other than you, because of your neuropathy, physically you don't have the same gait because you're not getting the stimulus, the balance and all that. But physiologically, you look good. Your color's good. And so you think, wait, last year I was doing this, and this year I can hardly get out of my chair, or I can't, I get fatigued just thinking. That was a really incredible hit that your physical body took, and now it's got to recover. And just remember that recovery process takes time to
and I'm so impatient because I really don't have the lifestyle to be patient. Also, I looked at a mirror. I don't know where it went, but
yeah.
I am so skinny. Like I looked in the mirror and I thought, oh my God, I lost 75 pounds in the hospital.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy how fast it comes off. It's like the body is just, it just uses all of its resources up as much as it can. And it, you had to, why you survived fundamentally was you were healthy and you had a lot of muscle mass. And that's, the most important thing is keeping that muscle.
And everybody wants to lose weight. I was on my way to California to my friend Ron Penna's company, Legendary Foods and BioShift. And I had to go through the metal detector where you put your hands up and it spins. And he says, do you have a belt on? I says, yes. And he said, can you take it off? I says, no.
My pants will fall
And he
off.
thought I was kidding. I says, my pants will fall off. I said, I lost 75 pounds. He goes, oh, good on you. I was like, no, it's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. I'm trying to put it back. When I said to him, I'm trying to put it back on, he looked at me like I was kidding.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to put it back on. I walked in the hospital 247 pounds of mostly muscle.
Well, yeah. You're 6'3", 6'4"?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not even. I think I'm 6'2".
Yeah.
But I worked for 20 years as a strength athlete to put that strength on, and the muscle came along with it. And I lost 75 pounds in a very short period of time. And it was shocking. I didn't recognize myself anymore. Mm-hmm. And everybody thinks losing weight is a good thing. It's like, no, I didn't want to lose that weight.
Well, you came to the game with more, you didn't have the visceral fat.
No.
That kind of a weight issue, but truly your survival was the fact that you were healthy and you had a fair amount of weight. I don't remember the statistics as age. Like I said, my husband was 52 or 54 when he had sepsis, and same thing. He probably lost at least 35 pounds, and it was a hard physical recovery, and the mental part of it is a good couple of years.
Yeah.
Just because it is like a PTSD response.
Let's talk about that for a second. So I know 3 people who have relatives who had sepsis, and they all said individually in private conversations, yeah, it took my mother 2 years before she felt normal. You said that too about your husband, and I've heard that one other place where somebody said it takes you 2 years to recover from sepsis. Why is that? Is the mitochondria that have to turn over? Or?
I would assume that there's a whole gamut, and definitely it's probably mitochondrial. But I do think it's almost like a recoil of the experience. The inability to sleep is a real problem with many people that suffered from having sepsis. They have a real trouble sleeping, and even if they were great sleepers before, they struggle with it, and it's this. It is a wake up and a panic. It's the getting into that deep sleep. We know deep sleep is restorative, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I used to get at least 2 hours of deep sleep every night.
Right,
and I'm lucky to get 35 minutes.
It could
now.
be related to the amount of physical activity that you used to do. You were able to you were doing a lot of physical activity, working muscles out. Those are ways that you can kind of like get your day off, get your stresses. It's the way of keeping you in a more less stressed way of being. So I think that's what served you well. And now, now because your muscles are so fatigued, your little bit of workout that you do is so fatiguing for you. There's this thing of getting too overtired. And so it's the balance between recovery and exercise that's so hard to master. And you're going to fare well, whether it's going to be a whole 2 years or a little bit less. But the people that don't have the athleticism that you had and the commitment that you had for physical health and well-being, they really do never make it to the other side.
It's interesting because I watched a video this morning.
It's like they call it their new normal, basically. After
that becomes their new normal. I watched an interesting video this morning. I can't think of the doctor's name, and I'm sorry. This is part of my problem. Like cognitively, I am a lot less than I used to be. But they were talking about when you do things you don't want to do, there's an area of the brain that grows. And now they understand it's not just the part of the brain responsible for willpower. It's the part of the brain that is responsible for the will to live.
Interesting.
And when this first happened to me, I used to tell Lisa, I think it would have been better off if I just died. Like, I just don't feel like I have what it takes to keep going. It was just a weird feeling. It was, I was
You're overwhelmed with fatigue.
Yes. And I still do it. I cry at the drop of a hat. I'm very depressed. I just have to talk about it.
I do think, but that's part of the purging of it, really. I mean, what happened to you is and people who suffer from sepsis, this is a huge attack on the body. It's not just the mere fact that you lost a toe, or somebody's lost a foot, or they've lost an ankle or fingers or whatever.
Right.
That's one aspect of it, but it's this incredible assault. The entire body is under attack. It doesn't just stop at that area of infection, and that's the thing to remember about sepsis. And
so, what do you think about this theory that those of us who are sepsis survivors have difficulty sleeping because, and it's usually related to anxiety? I found
it is.
Oh, so someone said maybe you're afraid to go to close your eyes.
It could be that component. That there is that truly the loss of control, and you see that more with like a type A personality. But my real gut instinct here is it's biome. It's the entire metabolic biome of your whole entire gut. I mean, these antibiotics, they gave you 3 months of antibiotics.
6 months of antibiotics.
6 months of antibiotics, and so it was necessary. But maybe there's another way. See, this is the part that, yes, it may have been necessary. However, could there have been another way? And that's when before my husband, I didn't know about ozone. I didn't know about high-dose vitamin C. I knew a little bit about high-dose vitamin C, but not for the sepsis approach. But the magical thing about things, you don't have these antibiotics in your body, by the way. Your immune system doesn't make antibiotics. What it makes hypochlorous. It makes hydrogen peroxide. It makes ozonites, ozones. That's how your body works to work on. And everybody gets all worked up about killing off bugs, right? They want to wipe the bugs out.
Yeah.
So these antibiotics aren't just focused on one organism. It's going to attack everything. It's similar to the idea of Roundup. Roundup doesn't just kill weeds. What it does is it affects the shikimate process of the plant, and that's how it dies. Well, microorganisms, they use shikimate for their energy. Like we have the Krebs cycle, they have the shikimate cycle. So in essence, we need the shikimate cycle because our microbiome is all operating like that. So my theory about why people have this anxiety post certainly doesn't help the fact that you literally were on the edge of death, and that the fear of not knowing what's going to happen, loss of control. But now you've got all of these beautiful, delicate bugs that make your neurotransmitters, that make you happy, that allow you to have an appetite, that allow you to have joy, that work with your mechanism of your neurotransmitters. They've all been sort of annihilated to some degree.
Scorched earth.
So now what? So yes, definitely scorched. You one round of antibiotics is like napalm on your gut. So now, if you don't propagate that gut with the proper probiotics and provide the food for them to survive, the mucin layer of the gut, all those wonderful environments, what's going to happen is the most virulent, strong guys, the ones that may or may not, they need to be there, but maybe they don't need to be in the same amount, they'll take over your terrain.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most vulnerable bugs is L. reuteri. And L. reuteri helps you make your oxytocin.
Yes.
And so when you wipe that puppy out and you have a real detachment to other people, I think you lose a lot of your humanity to some extent, because that's your love hormone. Oxytocin's your love hormone.
Dr. Irina Conboy came on my show the first time probably 7 or 8 years ago and talked about oxytocin and L. reuteri,
Mm-hmm.
how that particular microbe
Mm-hmm.
made old rodents young again.
It did. It's an incredible...
And at the same time, it seemed to complement by increasing oxytocin levels as well.
Yeah, it's an amazing microbe, and many babies receive all of their microbiome in the delivery process from the mother.
Some of it from the areola,
and some from
if the
breastfeeding.
baby is lucky enough to be breastfed.
Right. And
Another reason why it's so important to breastfeed your baby.
Right, and there again, I mean, it's just the symbiotic response of how the body all communicates and works within itself. So I do think that, and nobody really propagates that for you. In the medical business, you've not been told. You know about probiotics, but no, your infectious disease doc.
No, when I was in the hospital, Elisa asked my doctor, "Is it okay if he takes probiotics?" And he said, "It's not going to do any good, but he can if he wants." It was like,
right.
Oh, you're not going to do any good?
Right.
Like, what are you killing right now with all these antibiotics you're giving me?
Yeah. So it's an interesting science, healthcare today. Or medicine. It's a very interesting science, and so that's what people. What I hope to happen, and this is where my next journey in life is, to empower people to own their bodies and to heal them, because just like a mother knows intuitively about their child, and we've been gaslit about our bodies, and so it's not by intent. This is not by an evil empire design. It looks that way, but the reality is it's money, but when you own your, because there are people that there are certain, they don't do well with grapefruit juice, but they can have an orange, So it isn't the vitamin C that was the problem; it was the delivery system. So, it works. What works for you, and probiotics. What I mean with this is, or what's happened in your anxiety is truly the fact that you don't have the biome that you used to have, and then the problem is you go back. When you lose those bugs that were the good healthy guys, the first thing that you're going to start wanting is going to be highly processed things. You're going to want the carbohydrates. You're going to want the sugar.
I crave bologna.
Yeah.
I haven't had bologna since I was
wildest?
a kid. And I said to Elisa, I just want a bologna sandwich.
Yeah.
And then the other day, I fried bologna the other day.
Part of that's the comfort, though. It's comfort food. It's what you had growing up, and everybody wants to. When you're in that stage of recovery, and it's like you want to be brought back to health, but when you remember as a child. So that's part of that. But you're right. The carbohydrates and sugars are the biggest driving forces for people.
I'm lucky that I don't crave that.
Good.
I'm lucky that I don't need alcohol. I could go the rest of my life without a drop of alcohol.
Yeah.
There's certain things that I just don't need. That's
right.
it.
You're right.
Right now, I've got a crush on cottage cheese, yogurt, and pineapple chunks.
Interesting.
I love it.
Yeah.
I look forward to every morning waking up. I have it for breakfast.
Yeah. Well, it's good for form of protein. If you get the right cottage cheese, there are lactobacillus bacteria that are in cottage cheese.
But I mix that Too Good
Yeah, that's a good one.
yogurt in with it.
Yeah, because there's the, forget the name of the brand of yogurt that has probiotics in it, but there's a couple of, not yogurts, but cottage cheese.
Yes,
actually.
Lisa bought it.
Yeah.
It's a little too watery for me. I like the larger curds.
Curd. Yeah.
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 But yeah, I just crave that. That's what I crave right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, one of the things I want to share with the audience is that antibiotics can be horrible. And, I know that when they were first discovered, they were a lifesaver. A lot of people died of farm injury,
Oh, sure.
But then they were saved. They didn't get infection.
Well, and staph infection was pretty common. I mean, people did get staph.
So when I was in the hospital, the first 15 days, they knocked the sepsis out because they gave me intravenous antibiotics. And then when it was time to go home, the doctor that I had, and I had this conversation with her. In fact, I recorded it because I wanted to have it for posterity. I told her, I said, you did a horrible job. This is the infectious disease doctor. Nice girl, little Filipino or Asian girl. And I said, Dr. Joy, I'm very disappointed in you. And she says, why? I said, because when I went home, you didn't give me the option of an infusion. After I was reinfected, because you gave me an oral antibiotic, the Zyvox, which gave me the neuropathy.
Yeah.
I said, after that failed, I was reinfected.
Right.
And the reinfection infected
worse.
my spine. I would have never needed spine surgery. I said, if you would have just given me infusion to go home with. And it wasn't that they couldn't, because after I got reinfected, I had the spine surgery. They sent me home with an infusion.
Right.
And
that's where our layers of standard of care, right? That's where that comes into play.
because she said, well, what I did for you was the standard of care. I said, well, it's a horrible standard, I said. Like, you should have gave me the antibiotic.
My husband came home on similarly, and he ended up 3 days later back at the hospital
with a reinfection
and having to be on IV antibiotics.
Like, why?
That's when they were wanting. They were all about, it's obviously this prostate issue, and it's like,
Yeah, I mean, why not? Like, if you have two patients that get reinfected from an oral antibiotic that fails, never mind that it gives you other issues, which is nerve damage, why just change the standard of care and say, we've had a couple patients that didn't work out with this, where they got reinfected, so let's give everybody infusion when they go, because the insurance company pays for it. I had to pay for it out of pocket, a lot of it.
well, what's really interesting, it's actually more expensive in the downturn cycle, because you have now another hospital at readmission, but what you got to remember is how they titrate out the funds and how they get paid out. So it wasn't that you were in the hospital for 30 days, you were in the hospital for stints of 15 days with a 4-day break, and then you go back. So it looks at in terms of the statistics. You remember that's how it all gets looked at a little bit differently. And so, but it generates actually more money. It actually generates more money for the hospital.
I paid out of pocket for my infusion $650. But I would have rather have paid that than $500,000 for spine surgery.
Oh my heavens. Yeah. That was pretty heroic, right? Horrific right there.
And a lot of my problems now too from the spine surgery. I mean, they basically filleted my back muscles to get in there to each disc
to clear it out
and scrape infection off of it. That's why they did the spine surgery.
Yeah. And
so, sometimes people say, "Well, what happened to you?" And I think I'm just going to say I got hit by a truck because that encompasses everything that's happened to me. I can't bend. I can't. My back doesn't have the flexibility at all that it used to have.
What I find really interesting too, that you're, because of your age, I'm sure that they'll say, well, you're doing remarkable at your age.
Yeah, my doctor said, you're doing a lot better than I thought you were going to do. You don't have as bad of the curve in your back. And it's like, well, I push a 200-pound sled twice a day. It's like I'm doing things. I don't want to stay like this. I want to live the rest of my life, being able to be somewhat autonomous. I'm not right now.
Yeah, but you're going to get there, and that's the frustrating part, and like I said, the understanding why this happened or whatever. I think you have a voice. You've been in this business for a while, and if anybody can be a beacon of why you own your health, it's you. And so I think that it doesn't negate this that you've gone through, but I really think that you have an incredible purpose here, and the reason for why you are where you are.
There were two inflection points in this journey where I had opportunities to take care of myself,
right? But
I didn't know to make the decisions. The one was, why didn't they give me infusion on the way home? The other one was, the first neurosurgeon I saw, he looked at my spine, he asked me some questions, and he said, you just need to get this infection under control. You don't need spine surgery. I'll never forget he was a wonderful doctor. I want to say his name was Timothy Dawson. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I really wish I would have picked up on the cues. So he said to me, you have pain. It's from the infection, he said. I said, it's crazy. I just trained back 2 days ago. And me training back is a very intense workout. I'm usually doing deadlifts. I'm usually doing heavy rowing. And I said, I just had an amazing back workout 2 days ago.
Right.
He goes, and he looked at my x-rays and he goes, then you don't really need spine surgery. He said, you need to get this infection under control. I wish I would have asked him, what should I do? Like, get a different infectious disease doctor. There was an opportunity for me to take a different ramp. And I didn't know, because I was in such pain from the infection in my spine. And all I knew was I want to get this pain over with. And I should have known. It was the same thing when they said, we're going to send you home with an oral antibiotic. I should have said, why? You've got me on intravenous here for 15 days. Why are you going to change it now? I don't want the standard of care. I want what's working.
Well, part of that, though, is that your infection, when they ran your labs, everything looked good. Your infection had cleared. But the problem was, I go back to why, from the very beginning, did that little blister on your toe create this problem? And it is voltage driven. Why is it that somebody can get a cut by the same knife, somebody else gets a cut? One person gets an infection and the other one heals. So it is truly a voltage thing.
So let's jump into that now. We live in a world where we are exposed constantly to things that are antimicrobial and antibiotic. The difference between an antimicrobial that you're going to squirt on your hands and an antibiotic is the duration and the dose. So things like Roundup, glyphosate, which is in your coffee that you're drinking. If you're not drinking organic coffee, they use Roundup to clear the fields before it's time to pick the beans. Those things cause antibiotic resistance. The microbes that you're coming in contact with, and they're still microbes, but the kind that cause problems, they are getting stronger, in my humble opinion, and the immune system is becoming deterred from being able to act properly on them. I believe this is where the increase in sepsis is coming from. I think that between things like Roundup and other antibiotic acting property chemicals that we're exposed to day in and day out are making us more susceptible to infections. For the people who don't know and didn't pick up on it, I got a blister on my second toe on my left foot that ended up becoming infected, and is how I got my sepsis. So they had to cut the toe off, which I didn't really care about. They had to cut the toe off before they started my treatment.
Right.
Like, I've gotten 1,000 blisters in my life, and I've never even put a Band-Aid on them, and nothing happened. What was different about my immune system today than it was all these other times? And I think it's the things that we're being exposed to.
I do. I mean, I think that's true, and it's just when you go back to this energy issue within the body, there are electron donors and electron stealers. Mm-hmm. And I think we are getting more and more exposed to these stealers that steal our electrons, which that's our vitality, that's our health and wellness. And when that voltage lowers, and that's part of the process in aging as we age. And so what is longevity? You know, there's always this holy grail looking for the longevity gene or longevity telomeres, you know, all these things. I think it's encompassing to a lot of things, but I really do believe it's vitality, and it's how the vitality of energy flowing through the body. And so, yeah, I do believe the Roundup and all the other toxins we're being exposed to, the microplastics, the list goes on and on. Synthetic nutrients. I mean, we're eating food that's not really food. And the big trend towards having these GMOs, right? What people don't understand is what they've done is they've grafted. Initially, it sounds wonderful because they'll tell you that, oh, it's nothing different than what we used to do back in the day. We've created broccoli from cauliflower or whatever or from cabbages. It's just another version of the genes, and we picked the plant and we propagated the seeds that gave us this outcome. Well, that's over multiple generations, but it's plant material. It's the seeds from the plants. Right. It's not infusing bacterium from different microbes or different animals altogether, different species, right? So I think there's a little bit of that going on, some Frankenstein stuff that metabolically our body doesn't recognize.
Well, and the greatest contributor to a Frankenstein food is Bill Gates. Excuse me. He is. I mean, this guy has no business being in agriculture. He really doesn't.
Yeah.
He can't make an operating system that can resist a virus, and he's giving viruses to people now. Anyway, I know that's very unpopular to say, but it pisses me off every time I hear his appeal, like his product appeal.
Right.
Like, let the products go bad.
Well, it is sort of fascinating because you see, a lot of these people are taking different foods like the different cookies or processed foods or whatever and burning them, and they're still keeping their shape. Or the ice cream sandwich one where they have all these ice cream sandwiches and then
they don't melt, they don't burn.
They don't know what they're made out of, but they're not ice cream.
It's that stuff that they put in the walls to
right, styrofoamy things. Yeah. But even that, I mean, if you in nature you have containers, and it might be kind of fun for people to realize what you're drinking, and put some of these sugary drinks out, and then put real sugar and put out real honey or whatever, and see what gets gone, because they go right to the nature. The critters all go after nature. They won't even touch the McDonald's stuff. And
I know.
And yet we run to eat it. And so your body doesn't know what to do with that. And you get these things that you think are nutrients, and they become electron stealers ultimately. So that's where, the disease aspect of things happen and start. And we think that our government's protecting us from the FDA and from the different farm organizations. And the reality of it all is that they are wholly and completely run by industry. And it's all about making somebody's got to make a living.
I did a show many years ago with a scientist from University of Washington, and they had published a study showing that the closer you live to a farm
Right.
that grows corn, the higher your likelihood of developing Parkinson's diseases. And then you mentioned when we were talking the
Golf
other night, I
courses.
did that show about golf courses. Oh, that's enough. You know, it's right in front of us.
Well, and what's interesting about these valleys, living in this Ohio Valley area, with, you know, if you look at the air quality, what is, you know, we've been led to believe it's the exhaust from cars. I'm going to tell you, I don't think it's exhaust from cars. I think it's actually the fact that we've got a lot of these fields throughout this area that are being sprayed as well, different things beyond the Roundup. And because we are in this valley, that it gets picked up through the respiration of just evaporation and carried and holds all in here. And so you're breathing that. You're absorbing it through your skin. It's incredible that you don't. And the other, you know, now we've got water that's not alive water anymore. It's been filtered and, you know, contaminated with fluoride.
And I don't understand why they can't filter the microplastics out. I mean, we have the ability to capture these microplastics. We know they exist. Why aren't we using reverse osmosis filters before we put this stuff in a bottle?
You know, I think to a large extent is the industrial waste idea, because now they're going to have this huge sledge of industrial waste. Well, what are they supposed to do with it? You know, that's why we have, you know, fluoride comes from what we put in our water, comes from the manufacturing of aluminum.
I know.
So it's an industrial waste, and it was, you know, got a big skull and crossbones on it, but yet it got repackaged, turned around, and sold to people the idea of fluoride and fluoridating the water.
And there's clear evidence that fluoridated water reduces the IQ of growing children. And fluoridated water doesn't even do what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to reduce dental cavities. It doesn't do that. And on top of it, the more you use, the browner and spotted your teeth become.
They actually become very brittle too.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's sort of like how we strengthen bones. We look at bones and we go, oh, bones are just minerals, right? Your calcium and magnesium and phosphorus. But the reality is a good portion of your bone is collagen. And fluoride is super toxic to collagen. So your teeth, yeah. Why do you think those certain antibiotics that have the fluoride attachment to them cause the tendons to tear?
Really? That's right.
Yeah.
Several of them that you shouldn't work out if you're using them.
Right.
One of them is a very popular antibiotic that was used for UTIs.
Right.
So people would get an antibiotic from their doctor for a bladder infection.
Right.
They'd go to the gym and they'd go, "Oh my God, I just snapped my Achilles tendon."
Exactly.
Like, how did that happen?
Or blew a shoulder. Yeah, you know, it's and there again, then we can go back to, okay, these are great patented antibiotics, right? That's what they are. And things like D-mannose and even, you know, we've got ozone. Ozone is a really fascinating substance in regards to the body and affecting organisms that are overgrowth of organisms. I think this whole idea that you got to wipe it out, that it's this big old war, is not the answer. It's organisms not living where they were supposed to live. So something has happened that created the bladder to be conducive to grow a bacteria. And so I think that the idea that you throw an antibiotic at it is the quick fix Band-Aid. It's like sticking the bubble gum in the dike. But at some point, why did you get a hole? Is it because there's a woodpecker over there? You know.
Yeah, you got to find out that answer.
That's the answer. But see, nobody goes there, and so they just figured it's so easy just to go to the doctor, get a pill, and I'll just have a standing prescription. That was the big trend for a long time, and I hope people become to have more ownership to it, because I have many physicians that really are frustrated because I always was the why person. Well, why did this happen?
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, you know, and I realized they had 5 minutes and I was occupying more of their time. But the reality for I think everybody should want to know why. You need to know how your body works. And it isn't because you don't have to know how your body works in the level of a surgeon or a physician or anything like that, but you do need to know basic health. And we aren't taught that anymore. We aren't educated about that. And that's part of the reason why we can get gaslit as we move through the healthcare system.
I interviewed a scientist many years ago who said the appendix is the time capsule of your body's microbiome.
You nailed it.
And
it repopulates the gut.
Everything we need to repopulate your gut and your intestines is in there. Mm-hmm. And it was in there for a reason, so that the body had to someplace to go to get that. If, God forbid, you somehow wiped everything clean and you needed to start again. And he said that there should be a way, when an appendix bursts, the idea of removing it isn't the idea. The idea should be to seal it back up and let the body heal.
It's similar to the gallstone theory too. You know, people have gallbladder attacks and it's an emergency. You know, you got to go in there and get that gallbladder out. But the reality is the gallstones don't happen in the gallbladder. They're actually happening in the liver. So just removing that gallbladder doesn't solve your problem. It's the container, right? And it actually, that was the screaming symptom that you are producing, you know, gallstones in your liver. And so there's an enzymatic action that's happening that's making your liver not healthy, and that's part of the process. So you fix that, or you're having a deficiency in something that's affecting the enzymatic action. But it's the why, and that's what I mean about disease. We've created this situation where everything's a disease, and we can cut it out, we can medicate it up, and it's not fixing the why.
And most people, there's a percentage of the population that don't have the exit duct for the gallbladder. So it has no place to send, you know, because the gallbladder is supposed to drain into the intestines.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have that, so it just backs up. So they remove the gallbladder, that pesky gallbladder. It's like, no, open the duct up, you know?
Yeah, you know, that's part of it. When I think about that more in terms of the electrical part. So acid reflux, that's another one of those really powerful guys, because everybody when the drug lost its patent, it became over the counter.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah.
When your food doesn't like you, I can't think of the name of the drug that he was promoting. It was over the counter.
Right.
No, when your food doesn't like you, don't eat it.
Well, but, you know, so this was where the gastro guy was frustrated by me, because, you know, I had reflux and some GERD going on. And the response was, you don't have enough stomach acid. And I said, well, how do we know I don't have enough stomach acid? And his response to me was, it's obvious that you have too much stomach acid. And I said, well, how do you know that that my stomach acid is too powerful? And he said, well, obvious, because it's coming up into your esophagus. And so I said, well, can we test it? Well, there's no need. It's just it's acidic, and yours is so very acidic, but there's no need to just. So basically, take this drug, and of course I did. I take this drug, and it worked. I mean, I seriously didn't.
Yeah.
But I couldn't digest any food, and then suddenly my vitamin D was an issue.
Oh my God! There's dementia is associated.
Well,
that's
drugs. True. I was young, so I didn't have the dementia yet. Maybe it's coming. But the funny thing is, I never had an issue with vitamin. All of a sudden, I don't have enough vitamin D, and then now my thyroid wasn't working. So I go to a holistic doc that all encompassing, and basically was you didn't have too much stomach acid, you had too little.
Right.
And so that's why, and he explained this whole process where the contents of the stomach actually go into your small intestine, and your small intestine is a little sensor for the acidic nature, and it can't tolerate the stomach acid that's in the stomach. So it sends a signal to your pancreas to excrete bicarb. When that happens, it's an electrical switch that actually closes the sphincter of your of your upper stomach, so that your contents don't keep coming back up.
That's amazing.
I'd never heard that before. And the funny thing about it was when he told me how it worked, I went, oh my gosh, that makes perfect sense, because timing, right? Everything's about timing. When you realize the symptom occurs, and when does the symptom happen? it didn't happen immediately upon eating. It happened definitely 45 minutes or so later.
Right.
So, and I had I used to drink a lot of water when I would eat.
Yeah, I don't drink water when I eat anymore
Yeah,
at all.
I try not to. But it's, you get into the habit of that because if particularly if you're in healthcare, you typically have your 20-minute section where you're eating your meal, and you very rarely have time to be drinking throughout the day, as it's awkward. And so you find yourself being thirsty, so you drink and eat at the same time, and you eat and drink a lot more water than you normally would do if you were.
So to share a revelation with you and the audience, I believe that the antibiotic regimen they put me on for 6 months, she wanted to keep me on it for a year. I opted to stop. Has damaged not just the nerves in my leg, but other places. I think I have polyneuropathy because I'm having a hard time swallowing. Like my throat doesn't want to open up. So I take a little tiny bit of water, not enough to douse the flames, but I think that I've got like lots of nerve damage, and I've been thinking a lot about replenishing myelin. I'm going to start doing a deep dive because I think my entire body needs it. Everybody thinks antibiotics are like only good and not, aside from the discomfort from the stomach and bloating for a while, like antibiotics damage stuff outright, firsthand damage stuff. And we have to be cautious that we don't treat people for something and give them something new to worry about.
And I will say, I think that's been the real trend in healthcare in medications, and that we looked at, like you said, penicillin was the magic bullet, and that's when we really did all jump on the bandwagon of there's a pill for that. Yeah. And so getting back to the staying root cause, how do we keep ourselves healthy? How do we maintain vitality? And try to eliminate the downsides of these antibiotics. And so because of the biome being affected, you probably are not absorbing the nutrients like you normally would to rebuild. And the body's a really amazing thing. It will take whatever you have and build the cells with what it has. And when you don't have all the proper nutrients, what happens is you end up with a house that the cell itself that's not quite as good. So it affects the operational value of the cell. Does that mean it's forever? You're going to live with this forever? And I say no. And the reason is you have the ability to recreate new cells.
I ordered methylated multi-B, but I'm rethinking about getting injectable B.
Not a bad idea. Because the problem, your gut's a mess right now. So not a bad idea. A lot of people do for boosting vitality, energy, and things is the B12 or B complex
because
shots.
the nerves depend on B vitamins.
They do,
and sadly, most of the B vitamins are actually made in your stomach. And if your stomach has been a scorched earth experiment with
True. Well, and even the whole enzymatic action. You remember, that's the other part of it too. A lot of enzymes are required to complete the whole process. It's not just about the nutrients, it's also the enzymatic action. So I think, I agree with that. There's a lot of people, that's part of the recovery process, is to do some IV therapeutics where you're, high dose vitamin C's or even moderate, and doing, we discussed about the significance of magnesium. Magnesium's an amazing nutrient, and it's difficult to absorb in the body. And so, how do we get our magnesium levels that are for more therapeutics? And one of them is certainly through the IVs. And then we discussed the magnesium water. Dr. Davis brought that to the forefront about 15 years ago in his Wheat Belly book. And it's an easy process.
Why don't you explain it to the audience how you can make it at home?
So what the process is you take carbonated water, but the tricky business now is you want to read the bottle and make sure it's just carbonated water. It's not carbonated water with a lot of other ingredients added to it. And then what Dr. Davis originally used was a milk of magnesia, which is magnesium hydroxide. And you used to be able to get just milk of magnesia. And it was just, milk of magnesia was just magnesium hydroxide in a liquid form. A contamination happened about, I think it was 8 years ago. And so it had some kind of either a fungus, I don't remember how it was contaminated. And so because of that, now when you read Malcolm Mag has all these other preservatives ingredients in them. So you can get mag hydroxide as in a powder form from bulk supplements, and that's what I do. I use that. And it's a half a teaspoon per liter of water. You could go smaller, but what you're doing, you take this carbonated water, you put this powdered teaspoon or half a teaspoon in the water, clamp it back down on with the lid, and you shake it. And it's going to look white and milky, and then it will react with the carbonated water, reacts with the hydroxide, and you make what's called magnesium carbonate. And that's like a magnesium bicarb. And that is a clear water. By the time you're done, you do have some carbonation left, but I have to tell you what's interesting is that cheap bottle of soda water that you would, think you have to have that flavors to because it tastes like cheap water, but where you drink a Pellegrino and you're thinking, oh, this is so tasty. Mm-hmm. It's the magnesium.
The minerals, yeah.
The minerals in there. So that mineral component is the trade-off of it. So I got so passionate about it. We were brewers, and so my son had an old carboy, and that you brew your beer in, and we have a carbonation CO2 tank, and we make our own carbonate water with our filtered water.
That's awesome.
And so because we didn't want to have all the plastic bottles. There's no microplastics in that situation. So that is the downside with these polyester bottles, but the benefit of magnesium water for me was amazing, and my husband as well. So you use your magnesium on a regular moment, and that where the body, we can do blood tests, and you can say, well, what's your serum level? What's your red blood cell level? Well, those are all great, but the reality is what is your tissue level? Because we don't know that, right? And you use magnesium in so many enzymatic actions and so many other physiological actions in the body throughout the day. And if you don't have any tissue storage, it's just what's circulating in your blood, are you going to be as effective? And, magnesium is critical for ATP. That's the big magic on fatigue is how do we get our active ATP? And it's in the cells, and it's magnesium is critical. So why people are suffering from fatigue and things, maybe that they are magnesium deficient.
I resorted to using a bottle of orange-flavored sparkling water from Trader Joe's. And the only thing that's in it is, I guess, like
it's a little bit of
orange oil
or something.
Yeah, essence, yeah. That's it.
It's tasty.
It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And so that's fine to do. I mean, you could certainly do that. You just don't want the one that has that potassium polysorbate or whatever.
Yeah, or anything else in it. Yeah.
Right. But it's amazing, and that was huge, and it's simple and it's cheap.
I didn't think about it till just now. Maybe that's why I slept so well last night. Maybe I'm getting
more
my
magnesium
topped off.
Yeah, and you use it regularly, and with that, so when it comes back to the sepsis, it's a super stress on the body, and they gave you steroids. I mean, they throw everything at the kitchen sink at you, and so magnesium, they even probably hung magnesium on you, so because you need it so much more magnesium than a normal. So yeah.
Well, how long have we been here now?
Oh.
So we're done.
Yeah.
An hour, yeah. That's it.
Well, thanks.
Well, let's say goodbye.
Yeah, definitely. We'll say
do a
goodbye.
sign off.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, this hour went really fast. We'll probably have a follow-up show. For those of you who don't know, I have a website. It's now been up for 20 years. It's superhumanradio.net. You can go there and communicate with me. There's a form to send me a message. If you have any unanswered questions from today's episode, please email them to me there, or Carl.Lanore, CARLD.LANORE @ superhumanradio.net. Also, this show will be on our YouTube channel, on several Facebook pages. Also, I guess we have an Instagram page that we'll be able to put this up on. And then, of course, it'll be on the website as well. So since the show has had to take some time off because I got sick, I'd appreciate it if you share the show with your friends, let them know. We don't have a solid calendar yet. Right now, we're doing one show a week, but you can reach out to me and ask us to do a specific show, like one on how to learn how to talk. Lydia, you want people to reach out to you at the clinic, or?
Well, actually, I officially retired yesterday.
Oh, God bless you. That's great.
So this is part. I mean, I'm moving into a new adventure, and I think that my background has been in aesthetics for years, and which is wonderful. I love it. It's a beautiful marriage of art and medicine. But I think it's time to heal us. I think we all need to be healed, and my goal now is to sort of help foster that.
You can also send a message to Lydia through the website.
Yeah.
That's a good way too.
Yeah.
Superhumanradio.net. No, yeah. I haven't had a Superhuman Radio. Yeah, .net.
I think it is. Yeah.
Didn't sound right. I haven't said it in so long.
Yeah.
I haven't had to do that. So for almost 20 years, I signed a podcast off by saying, muscle is metabolic currency. So get into the gym and make a deposit today. And that still reigns true. I would not be sitting here if I wasn't as strong as I was going into that hospital with sepsis. And there was lots of fancy sayings I had on the podcast. Stronger is younger. But the bottom line is, if you're not training your body to be stronger, you're letting it fall apart. You have a choice. So that's it.
That's true. My advice to everybody is stand up and put your pants on one leg at a time, as long as you can.
I can't.
Yeah. Well, you will.
Yeah.
You'll get there. But that's the indicator to me in terms of maintaining vitality. Is to
Yes,
be able to do
I
that.
agree. And the other thing I always check is close your eyes and see if you feel like you're off balance.
That's right.
That tells you how your brain's doing. So thank you for watching, and we'll be back.
Thank you for having me.